Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Welcome to this table, the great Malabite.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufa. Ruben, the way you were pronouncing Congo. Some of these young men, they don't know what you were talking about.
Congo of rice.
Congo of rice. You've come a long way. They will know that you are not to this long time.
Not today.
Not me today. I think they will understand Mudo of rice.
No, it's Derika. They do that.
Derika.
Oh,
Paint bucket. Half paint bucket.
Derika. Congo.
But even the high up there these days, go for paint bucket instead of stressing yourself to buy a 25 kg. After all, you are not going to eat one bag of rice in 6 months. So you just go for some Mudu, some Congo to use that. Anyway, we start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. Now we'll start with the story about the masthead. Tinubu, decision to remove petrol subsidy challenging but necessary. Kerry says NNPC won't block divesting IOCs. Lukobiri insists oil companies' onshore exit not lost to Nigeria. Of course, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu yesterday reiterating the decision to remove petrol subsidy. Because many just think all the problems workers and the populists are talking about revolve around the removal of petroleum subsidy. But truly, it was necessary because before the general election, we all agreed that petroleum subsidy had to go because it was unsustainable and not the way to go for any nation that wants to make progress, especially for a country like Nigeria that has been blessed with crude oil. The problem being our ability or inability to refine our products back home here and consume what we produce. The unfortunate situation where we export crude and import finished products, but the president on the one had to do what he had to do. All the presidential candidates ahead of the general election agreed that subsidy had to go, but how it was removed on the one without some planning, I think that has been the talking point. So the president reiterating this at every opportunity, well, just restating the facts, but as we see yesterday, the labor went on the streets to protest the harsh economic condition, the difficult nature of the after effects of government policies. Now we look at the lead story, the talking point all morning. In an unprecedented offensive to tame inflation, CBN raises MPR to 22.7% from 18.75%. Cardoso, Apex Bank has settled additional $400 million verified FX backlog. Says unidentified users accessed $26 billion on Binance platform. Insists bank has responsibility to protect customers. Declares market distortions, undervalued naira, vows punishment for corporates, increase in MPR hurtful to rail sector operators. Manufacturers Association of Nigeria urges Apex Bank to adopt managed float exchange rate system. Yes, the governor of the central bank speaking after the first MPC meeting under his leadership of the central bank, of course, came up with this far-reaching decision, of course, raising the MPR to 22.7% from 18.75, 400 basic points there, quite significant. And of course, the talking point has been how this will help to tame inflation, but manufacturers The organized private sector, people in the real productive sector are complaining, as this, perhaps they are saying, will further strangulate those who are in the real productive sector. But the talking points will continue all day and beyond. But the CBN also has other measures which it is taking to balance things up, if you will. Now, if we just go over to the Guardian newspaper reporting this story, MPC decision concerns for OPS, organized private sector, and CBN moves against inflation, Naira speculators. Of course, other stories on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. NLC suspends protests, gives federal government 2-week ultimatum to address hardship. Others, well, Labour made good its plan yesterday to go on the streets to protest the harsh conditions in the country. And of course, workers duly joined, human rights activists and civil society groups joined. And yesterday, the police, of course, they discharged their duty creditably, you will say, across the country. Even in Lagos, the police taking it a notch higher by even giving protesters water, biscuits. I think it's the new face of the police. Tells you that if our police, they are well orientated and allowed to act as internal security agency that they are, will have a lot more civil environment. Recall that what happened some time ago at that toll gate. It was when those who are not police were called into the scene that things went haywire. So the police must take some kudos for how they handled the situation yesterday, which was what we canvassed for, that the police have a duty to protect workers who have decided to go on protest. And of course, protest being part of the democratic the rights of workers, of citizens in a democratic environment. And also on the front page of the Guardian newspaper there, hardship, Makinde joins as workers protest in Oyo, Osun, Ondo, Ekiti. So Sheyi Makinde also joining the protest yesterday, at least to solidarize with the workers. And the message they have put out there, the NLC called off the street protest that will have spilled into today. But today they will be addressing press conferences across the country. But the point here is that they have given the government another 2 weeks, the federal government, that is, to meet some of those agreements they reached with Labour. And 2 weeks is not too far away, March 13. And I hope the federal government will show good faith and start implementing some of those things they promised to do, so that they don't start rushing at last minute for one meeting or the other to stop Labour from going on strike. Of course, like the TUC that came up with a prescription, the NLC also gave a number of prescriptions yesterday, which they handed over to the Senate Committee chair yesterday in Abuja, and in Lagos. Of course, they handed also the message to members of the House of Assembly as to how to ameliorate the situation. We hope some of those prescriptions will be looked into so that Nigerian workers can breathe, to use the popular phrase. Now, if we look at the New Telegraph newspaper, hardship protests, restore industrial hubs, palliative to farmers, fix refineries, NLC tells federal government, talking about the suggestion prescription given by Labour. Now, below the photograph, Senate proposes 6-year single term for CBN governors, $26 billion passed through Binance in 1 year. Cardoso, CBN, EFCC move against illicit FX flow, external reserves, it's $35.5 billion. Interest rate now 22.7%, CRR raised to 45%. Now, the Punch newspaper Presidency alleges political agenda as protests hit states. Well, workers had to speak out about their condition, saying it's political agenda sponsored by anybody. I think it is clear, even without the NLC organizing workers into the streets, there were protests all over the place, spontaneous protests across the states, even before NLC's declared protests yesterday. So, accusing people or politicians of political agenda over this protest, I don't think that will serve any good. Now, the Daily Trust newspaper, cost of living crisis, NLC suspends protests. That's how the Daily Trust is reporting that story, while the Vanguard newspaper, NLC gives 17-point demand to Tinubu suspend protest. That's the Vanguard newspaper. Now, the Nation newspaper, economy will get better, Tinubu assures Nigerians. Speaker Abbas urges patience with government. We must assure Nigerians that there is light at the end of the tunnel, although we might be going through a difficult period now. The government, president speaking. So, assurance, hope renewed. So, we should be patient. But I think there is limit to patience. That's why Labour went on protest yesterday, to remind the government that you cannot stretch the patience of an hungry man. You cannot be patient when you cannot feed. So I think that should be the message to government yesterday. So they need to act expeditiously on some of these measures they have promised to deal with. Not to talk of conversion of LPG buses many months ago. It's not rocket science. Now, the Business Day newspaper, yes, perhaps some light at the end of the tunnel. Naira strengthens as CBN moves to stabilize economy. The Naira gained against the dollar as the Central Bank of Nigeria took more measures, including delivering a massive hike in its benchmark interest rate on Tuesday. So, the salutary effect of the action of the CBN yesterday, of course, the Naira gained some strength. We hope it will continue. But there's another report also in the Business Day newspapers. Page 2, CBN vows to recover intervention loans worth over 10 trillion naira. Says distortion, masking Naira's true value. So if there's so much money out there, intervention funds, and people are not paying back, I think CBN should go after that money. It will make some impact. Now, the Blueprint newspaper, NLC halts protest, issues fresh warning. Let's look at the foreign newspapers quickly. The Daily Telegraph of UK, the Telegraph of UK. UK blocks Macron's bid to send troops to Ukraine. Rift emerges at the top of NATO as France suggests West could directly enter conflict. Of course, the UK has warned that no, to do that will amount to a major escalation of the crisis. You'll be talking of a Europe-wide war. And I don't think many in European countries are ready for that. And of course, Macron just perhaps overreacting there, suggesting that NATO will put boots on the ground in Ukraine beyond what they are doing now in giving Ukraine weapons support. Now, the Washington Post reporting, Trump-Biden prevail in Michigan, notable showing for uncommitted. President faces backlash from key bloc over Gaza. Yes, President Biden won in Michigan yesterday, the primaries, but what it has shown its own vulnerabilities, because there's a potential sign there that the rank and file Democrats are not having it easy, and they are not in agreement with the way President Biden has handled the Gaza war. Of course, Trump continued sweeping with Nikki Haley, still very much hanging out there in the race. Ruben, Rufai, and Ayo.
Nikki Haley has not won any of the primaries
at all.
But I like her determination. Our supporters are hoping that on Super Tuesday next week, which will take place in 15 states and 1 territory, that maybe she should be able to put up a good showing. But having won 40% in South Carolina, maybe that's what is giving her the confidence. But I think, by next Tuesday, it will have been properly established that, Donald Trump is a candidate. South Carolina. That was 40%. She has been governor there. She was governor there for 6 years. And then anyway, that's that about that. As for President Biden in Michigan, Michigan historically favors him. He won Michigan easily in 2020. The people criticizing in Michigan this time around are the Arab American community in Michigan, who are critical of his support for Israel. Finally,
36,000 uncommitted votes.
Yes, you mentioned the French plan. Yes. That's what it's called. The French, they have a plan suggesting that, Western soldiers should move into Ukraine to help Ukraine. And, UK is saying no, it will lead to escalation. But it's not the UK alone. Germany too is saying no, don't let us go there. You can provide aid, more aid, but don't commit troops on the ground. No. More so, as Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, has said, come, you send your troops, and then it will be an all-out war in Ukraine. Do the allies want that? I doubt. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much.